I decided pretty early in life that I wanted to work for the Girl Scouts. You know, I just loved it, and I had a CIT counselor at camp when I was about 16 that was a George Williams graduate. And that's the first time, of course, I'd ever heard of it or knew anything about it. And she sort of guided me along in my thinking about what I wanted to do and steered me toward George Williams, which turned out to be wonderful for me. The day I arrived, I was just 18 and had never been to Chicago. And so they put me on the train, the Santa Fe chief from Kansas City to Chicago, with a footlocker. And I got to Chicago and I didn't know what to do with the footlocker. But I kind of drug it across the train station, got a cab, and went to 53rd and Drexel. Got out, and then I didn't know what to do with the footlocker, but I got it drug into the school, and they took me in to the dormitory where I lived, and took me into my room and introduced me to my new roommate. And she was sitting on the bed crying. I think she was from North Dakota. And she did that for 3 days. And I tried to talk to her, she was so homesick and so anyway, she finally had to go home, and I got a different wonderful roommate. But one of the girls in the dorm befriended me, and she's still a friend of mine. She lives in Oregon. But that day, it was so nice. The house mother, the other people in the dorm, everybody, that this incident didn't really turn me off. And I used it the rest of my career. Every time a parent would call me about a homesick kid, I would tell them that story. And I'd say, aren't you glad she's homesick now and not when she's 19 and needs to go to school? It was really a new world for me. I lived in a kind of beaver cleaver, father knows best atmosphere in Kansas City. I grew up in a very homogeneous community. It was before the integration of the schools in Missouri. And I had a wonderful growing up and a wonderful experience in the Girl Scouts, but very homogeneous. But when I got to George Williams, I just was introduced to the rest of the world. And it was a wonderful, eye-opening, great experience for me. And I had a wonderful, wonderful career. And I think George Williams helped me to have that kind of career. I think one of the reasons I chose to go to George Williams was that I could work while I went to school. And I needed that extra income. But the thing that came out of it was the experience, the working experience in a youth agency was equally helpful to me in my career as was my education. I mean, the education was wonderful, but the working, those 4 years in youth agencies in Chicago really helped get me ready for what was coming. Well, I would hope that you'd have the kind of professional faculty we had, coupled with the great general education. You know, when we were there, most of our general ed classes were taught by people from the University of Chicago. Yes. And then we had that very small, very professional faculty that helped us with our professional development. And I think that was a pattern that is hard to beat. I would hope that you could replicate something like that. Plus, I also believe that the work experience coupled with the education is very important. I just wish the best for the future